Welcome to Spirit Level, the podcast that explores spirit, mystery, inspiration, and the ancient art of divination through the lens of modern living. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Fiongal.
And we're your hosts. In this podcast, we have a mix of guest speakers asking what spirituality means to them, talking heads between Fiongal and me, our experiences, what's helped us along our paths, and what could inspire you, and maybe some meditations along the way. Hello!
Hi.
Here we are again. Another episode of Spirit Level. Oh, we're getting into the flow of these now, aren't we?
Swing.
After a bit of a long break. So how are you? What's been going on?
I'm all right. What has been going on? It's been a bit of a funny couple of weeks. Everyone seems, I don't know, everyone seems a little panicked, really, particularly with the clients. I love the clients, but I've had lots of repeat clients, which has been really nice. It's always lovely seeing kind of familiar faces. And then I've had more challenging sittings, shall we say. I don't know, it's led me to feel a little bit like, not that I didn't before, but there's a certain seriousness coming in. I don't know, I'm trying to kind of balance this thing of feeling like taking no prisoners. I don't know if you've experienced this, particularly working with spirit. It's like the ante seems to up a little bit each time. There's every 6 months almost, there's a sudden, it goes up a level. And with that going up a level, the responsibility goes up a level. And the intensity of the sittings goes up a level. And the things that you are working with and dealing with go up.
Yeah.
Which is exciting in one way because it's evidence that things are moving in the right direction. But at the same time, you kind of want to tell everyone to... ... I don't know.
Yeah. It's just, we just have to keep remembering with this work that we are just a vehicle for this information and not to get in any way attached to making it make sense.
Yeah.
I remember I was on course at a college the other week and it came up again just as a reminder, and we know that, but don't get in your own way. This is not about you being right. This is not about you proving anything. This is not about you fixing somebody. This is about you delivering a message that's coming through from spirit. You might understand it. You might not understand it. That is not your responsibility. And we just have to keep remembering it's not our responsibility to fix these people. It is our responsibility to be true to the messages that are coming through us. And then it's up to them what they do with that information.
Yeah. Good reminder. Thank you. No, that's really helpful. It's interesting, this work, isn't it? Because a lot of the time we're just doing it in isolation. It's just us and the sitter. And occasionally we have behind the scenes access here. But we do occasionally call each other up as readers going, what is going on? It's like, we can sometimes really, it's hard because we have to make it look easy. And in some ways it is. But at the same time, it is a bit like walking a tightrope.
Yeah.
Sometimes this work.
Yeah.
But anyway, not that I'm complaining by any means. It's just, there are challenges the other side of it.
Absolutely.
Basically. But anyway, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm good. So yeah, we were going to talk about...
Yeah, so today's episode was kind of inspired by our psychic development circles or our psychic development groups. They have recently been looking at what is the aura. And we thought, actually, it'd be a really great subject for us to cover in our podcast, because I know that there were lots and lots of questions that came up from that it wasn't necessarily time to delve deep into in the psychic development course. So we thought we would do it here instead. And actually, I think it's maybe the 5th most visited page or the 4th most visited page on the website. So yeah, we wanted to do a bit of a debunking. What is an aura? Why should we care? How do we use it? How do you see an aura? And all of that kind of magical stuff.
Because you will often start your readings by looking at the aura, won't you?
Yes,
I don't.
exactly.
I don't actually. If I'm honest, the aura doesn't come into it that much for me.
No, it is quite kind of. It's partly horses for courses. I think because I work so clairvoyantly, visually,
Yes,
and I work a lot with color, both in my quote unquote everyday life and my psychic life. It makes sense that auras are very pertinent in my readings.
So, if I was to say to you, what is the aura? What would be, how could you put it in its most simplest terms, what the aura is?
Well, that's asking for a miracle. I'm not very good at working in simple terms.
Or just to sum it up to start with.
It's always a sign that you really understand something if you can put it into simple terms. So
that's why I was asking you the question, not the other way around. And I do know, of course I understand the aura, but...
No, of course you do. So the aura is... So there's a visual way that I can explain it, and that is like the Ready Brek adverts of the 1980s, I think. And the kids would eat the Ready Brek and they would go slightly radioactive. So that's kind of what visually how it looks. The aura is 2 parts. The function of the aura is in 2 parts. One is it's a storehouse of information. So it's a storehouse of psychic information, emotional information, mental information, spiritual information, physical information. The aura exists on 7 layers, and each of these layers involves one part of those. So it's like the SD card, or it's like the hard drive. Is it the hard drive? Yeah, I suppose. It's a bit like the hard drive on the computer. It's where all the information is stored. And that's affected by our history, our dispositions, our personality, our soul, our history, our karmic history. So that's one part of the aura. The other part of the aura is how it's our interface. It's how we engage with the world around us. One easy way to explain this is if you meet somebody and you go, oh, they've got a really lovely aura about them. So it's already in our lexicon. It's already in our language. So this isn't some kind of some abstract idea that we have to get our head around.
Or you might say they've got lovely energy. So is energy and aura the same thing?
Ish. The aura is made up of energy, and all energy is information. So in that respect, yes, it is. And it is an energetic emanation from us. So our aura extends beyond, it's about an arm's length, but you can extend that and retract that as well. And it's the emanation. It's, if you look at anything that is living and conscious, there is an energetic emanation. It's like the glow. It's that Ready Brek glow. And that is what we might call chi in Chinese, prana in Indian or Vedic terms, ki in Japanese terms, or life force. So anything that has a life force also has this energetic emanation.
So, for example, plants would have an aura. Trees. Fruit. Animals, obviously.
Yeah.
So everything that is alive has an aura.
Yes. And this is why we kind of have to get our head around that actually, if that includes fruit and vegetables and plants, well, so too. Part of the way that you can research this is through Kirlian photography. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. Kirlain, I think, or Lian, off the top of my head. And they're the photographs that you probably will have seen where you've got an apple and it's got a corona around it. It's got this emanation around it. And Kirlian photography is able to capture that emanation. And so too, as intuitives, we can start picking up on that emanation. Either we can see it in our third eye, our mental images, or sometimes I draw them, so I can draw them with color. So they're the two main ways of seeing, quote unquote, your aura as well. The other thing that it is responsible for, that's probably not necessarily the most pertinent, but is important part of it, is that it's our natural barrier. So it's like our energetic membrane. Sometimes people look at it as an energetic shield. I don't really like that language because that denotes that somehow it is protecting us from something bad. Look at it more as a membrane that allows certain things in and stops other things coming out. So we can actively and with intent, with our intention, use the aura to ensure that what is ours and what is other people's is other people's. So it acts as this kind of energetic membrane.
It reminds me of on retreat once, we did an exercise where we were trying to get people to sense other people's auras. And you do that thing where you stand with your back to somebody and they walk up towards you and you can actually expand your aura as well. You can kind of send your aura out further and bring it in closer so that you can, and people can sense when that's happening or how close they can get to you. And it's a really interesting thing that it's like when you walk into a room and somebody that has an aura about them, again, that kind of saying where they come in with a presence, it's like they've got themselves into a state before they've entered that room of expanding something because perhaps they need to come and give a keynote speech or deliver something of importance. And it's like they might not even realize they're doing it, but in some way they are expanding.
Well, that's
their aura.
If you go and watch people in the theatre and you see this glow around them.
Yes.
That's often what's going on, is that they have to expand their aura because they have to fill the room.
Yes.
They have to fill the
reach
space.
more people.
They have to project. They have to have an energetic and emotional connection with the people right in the back row.
Yeah.
So that's a really good kind of expression of that and an indication of that. And if you think that you don't have an aura, get somebody to stand right next to you with their nose almost touching yours.
Yeah.
Again, it's like this concept of somebody being in your personal space wasn't really up until probably the 1940s/50s. That wasn't even a concept, really. It could be deemed as threatening if somebody came, but you would never use this language, oh, they're in my personal space. So this idea of actually having ownership on the energy around you is something that we have become more and more sensitive to. And because of that sensitivity across the board, we're able to interact with things on a much more subtle level. This is in part why collectively we're becoming much more used to using not only this language, but also getting much more used to understanding or picking up those subtle vibrations of other people or other situations around us. So this thing of, does everybody have an aura? Absolutely they do, yes. Whether you're conscious of it or not, doesn't really matter if you're not, but the benefit of being conscious of it is that you are able to work with it a little bit better and a little bit more.
So when we work as a psychic, we are expanding our auric field, aren't we, to some degree? And then when we close down, we kind of draw that aura back in.
Yes. So we can, usually this kind of happens without our know-how, exactly as you say, because within psychic readings, we are trying to gather as much information as possible. And the aura tends to be the main interface of which that happens, not with only our guides, but the person that's sitting in front of them, their guides, all of that. It's again, this interface that will naturally kind of start expanding. We can, with intention, with the use of our mind, also expand that. That becomes particularly pertinent within trance mediumship. I won't kind of go into that too much. But yes, absolutely. I suppose one of the important questions here is, well, why do we care? Why do we care? Why do we need to know this stuff? And one of the main takeaways that I would give people is the important bit is not expanding the aura. We don't kind of want to do that unless we kind of know what we're doing. because expanding the aura actually takes a lot of energy. And actually, it's again, if we go back to that actor on stage and they're projecting like mad, they're going to be knackered after that performance, because to hold that and maintain that requires a lot of energy. So the same is true when we're expanding our aura. So again, why we often find readings quite tiring.
Yeah.
And that is a kind of muscle that you build up over time. What's more important, and perhaps a more important takeaway, is to draw your aura back in. So in any time that you feel in life that you have had to kind of almost be in performance mode, or you've had to be on high alert, particularly, when you see animals and their ears prick up and they suddenly they're hypervigilant. When we find ourselves in that state, chances are that our auras will have extended as well in order to gather as much information as possible from our environment, from everything that's happening around us. So it's important with our mind to consciously think, right, I'm going to draw my energy back in. Again, you might just think, well, how do I even start with that? But it is as simple as maybe closing your eyes, settling on your breath for a moment, and just, you can even visualize, or you can feel, or you can say it with words. You're drawing in your aura at the front, you're drawing your aura in at the back, you're drawing it in on the left side, the right side, diagonally. I even recommend you pause the video or pause the podcast. Maybe not while you're driving, but just pause it now and give it a go. I'm going to stop there for a moment to give everybody a try. And just notice the difference between that. It's really helpful technique when you just want to be kind of quite insular. Either you've got lots to be getting on with, or you're just really, you've got to get your head down and just get on with stuff. It's a really, really helpful technique to use.
So how can we become more aware of our aura, or how can we start to see our aura? Are there any things that we can do?
Yes. The best way, well, actually, you kind of know the answer to that one, don't you?
I think having a meditation practice is probably really important. I think grounding is really important.
Yes.
So we bang on about grounding all the time. It's so important. You can't come up unless you are grounded down. It's so important. So I think practicing grounding through visualization, through being out on the ground on your bare feet is really important.
And what, I know we've covered this already, but what is grounding? Just as a
for me, it's just dropping out of the higher chakras, out of the headspace, into something that's more embodied, something that's more connected with the earth that we stand on.
Yeah, perfectly said. And the kind of present moment as well.
Yeah, exactly.
The only other part. And actually, it's really, really great that you've mentioned that, because also the grounding works as the energetic recycling plant as well. It allows us to discharge, much like if you're listening in the UK, you'll understand this. If you're not, look at a UK plug, but you've got that grounding pin. So in the UK, we have 3 pins to our plug, and one acts if there's a surcharge in the system. It allows the extra energy to go somewhere. That's what grounding allows for us. And this very much affects the auric field, that when we're grounded, we're able to discharge or rid ourselves or let go of what is actually not so aligned and harmonious, and also to draw up that energy that we do need to sustain this auric field. Because this is something really important to kind of point out, is that a healthy, quote unquote, auric field is quite vital. It extends relatively far. It's a strong barrier. When we're feeling disheartened, or often when we're feeling low of energy, our auric field is also kind of slightly diminished. So if we're going through a period of physical ill health, that's why it's very important, if we've had a long period of physical ill health, that we attend to our auric field. If we've got emotional distress, again, long-term emotional distress, other things that can kind of affect the aura is the obvious things like being intoxicated, drugs and alcohol, particularly again over you can pretty much treat your aura roughly for a day and you'll be absolutely fine. It tends to, the important thing, and this is what's important within a psychic reading and why I use it in a psychic reading, is that it is a telegraph to what somebody's day-to-day habits and life and attitudes and viewpoints are.
So can you tell that by the shape and the colour? Like, what is it that gives it away if the aura's in bad shape?
Yeah, so again, it's very much the colours tend to have a certain...
They're darker, maybe more greys.
Yeah. It's quite logical, a lot of it. So if you've got colours that are very bright and vibrant and sparkling and very effervescent, then it's a sign usually that somebody is in good flow, or they're in a good disposition, they're in a good humour. And again, it applies with the kind of what I call the texture of the aura. So sometimes it can feel quite slow and treacly and trudgy, and it's not as free-flowing as it normally would be. Or sometimes I see auras that are very, very sparkling. The strangest reading I've ever had was I looked at somebody's aura and it felt like I was on an acid trip. I was like, your aura is the most psychedelic thing I've ever seen.
And had they been using psychedelic
drugs? They said, a week ago I dropped some LSD and then this morning I was smoking some pot. I do not recommend going to a psychic reading having taken any sort of drugs beforehand, because it really interferes, as it did with that reading. It took me a little while to figure out what was going on, and then it landed in me to ask. I was like, have you been taking any psychedelics recently? So anybody who thinks that psychedelics don't make a difference on your energy system, I'm sorry to disabuse you. It's interesting, actually, because when I was studying, I can't remember where I was going, but I had some mushrooms that weekend, and then my boyfriend at the time, who was also studying, went to see the tutor, and the tutor was like, have you been around mushrooms? And my boyfriend at the time was looking really confused, like, no, not. And he was like, no, not you. Have you been around anybody that's been taking mushrooms? So it almost kind of transferred across the auric field. So again, all of this information is stored in our energy. So anybody that thinks it doesn't make a difference, again, usually once or twice you're going to be fine, but over a kind of systemic period, then that's when what starts to cause kind of issues.
Yeah. Have you ever wondered if you have psychic abilities? Perhaps you get those strong gut feelings about things, or you just know when your best friend's about to call. Perhaps you're extremely empathetic and open to other people's emotions. Well, I'm pleased to say that you're not alone. We hear this on a daily basis, and that's why we're back with our next round of psychic development courses that we run 3 times a year. Whether you're completely new to this work or you have a bit of experience, there's something for everyone. In these 6-week live stream courses, you will uncover the skills required to build upon your intuitive and spiritual world. Places are limited and will go fast, so be sure to check out wellnessfoundry.co.uk/courses to find out more and book your place.
But the reason that I start with it in the readings is, as I say, it's a really good reflection of... So for me, when I do lots of yoga, for instance, my aura tends to be quite still, quite balanced, it's relatively even. When I am very frantic and lots going on, very busy, your auric field can also get misaligned. It can get off-centered, so to speak. So those people that have had to spend their whole life watching their back because they've kind of been brought up in streets that are perhaps they've had to be a little bit more wary in. They tend to have quite a kind of pronounced auric field at the back. And then those that are always running forward, again, their aura tends to be leaning a little bit too far forward. And that tends to be most people in the West, really.
Right.
If we've had a fright, it offsets our aura. Or if we've had an accident, had a near-death experience, anesthetic can be a reason that your auric field gets a bit wonky as well. Emotional stress, physical stress. Stress tends to be the main one. Kind of thins out the aura sometimes.
And what can we do then to bring the aura back into good health?
So there's a couple of techniques and tips. One that I often do, and again, you can kind of follow me at home, is I just like to close my eyes, again, feet flat on the floor, just kind of getting in that slightly more grounded space. And then just with my energetic body, I don't do this with my physical body. It might feel like you're doing it with your physical body, but trying to resist that. So I just take my energetic body a little over to the left. So just sending my conscious mind, my energetic mind, my heart mind, slightly to the left of me. Then I take it slightly to the right of me. So I can feel that shift, even though my body's not moving. Then I take it to the little bit to the front. Then I take it a little bit to the back. And then I come into center. And when you come into center, that should feel really like, it should feel like a key and a lock that you're just coming, you know, often when we say, oh, I'm feeling off center or I'm feeling a bit kind of, that's what's actually going on. We are off center. We're energetically off center. But by far, one of the best ways is going for some form of healing.
Or you could, we do it on retreats sometimes where we get people to comb each other's aura with a druzy, like an amethyst druzy crystal.
Yeah.
And that can be quite, to smooth out that aura, like you said, because sometimes auras, although we always think of them as being
Egg-shaped?
oblong, egg-shaped. Yeah.
Oblong's a rectangle.
Oh, yeah. Egg shape. They don't necessarily have to be that. They can be quite different shapes, can't they? And they can have like lumps that come out in certain ways. And I think combing the aura is a good thing, again, just to kind of bring everything
yes, exactly.
back into shape, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Just like we would cleanse the... so often when you see people with the smudge and they're brushing it over them, that's effectively what you're doing. You are smoothing out the aura. You're cleansing down the aura. And that's a really good thing to do. It's like we would clean the physical body. We can clean our energetic body. That druzy crystal. So a druzy is those little crystals that come in little clusters and they've got their little triangular teeth almost. You can use that to comb down your aura is a really great technique as well. Salt baths is an amazing one to, again, just cleanse down that kind of grubbiness of the energetic aura. Grounding, as you said, being in nature is really great for the auric field, being in sunshine, fresh air, all of that the aura loves. Crystals are a really, really good one. They can strengthen the aura if that's what we feel we need at times. Yeah, they would be the kind of the main ways of looking after our energetic health. And the obvious ones of kind of good diet, good exercise, being happy, all of those things will help support this kind of vital... You know, when you see those people, it's a bit like you were saying before of those eminent people that walk through the room and they've just got a presence about them, or you just walk down the street and somebody just looks very self-contained, very content, very happy, just really in their own bubble, but in a positive way. You know, again, it's so interesting the language we use. Oh, they're in a bubble. No,
they're in their own world.
They're in their own world. That tends to be an indicator of somebody that has a very vital aura.
And I was also thinking there was another exercise that I've done in the past that could be an interesting one just to start looking at the aura, where you bring a mirror up to your face on a white background and you just start visualizing kind of at your third eye point for a little while and let your eyes kind of start to go soft, a bit like you going cross-eyed in that way, and then shift that up to about 2 inches above your crown and then all over your crown into your shoulders, because we want to be looking just above our physical form, don't we, to see it, and just let the eyes go soft and try and hold that gaze and just see if you can start to notice any colors, any movements, any vibrations or anything. I remember doing that, and that's quite, and again, all of this stuff does take practice. It's not like you might not see this straight away. Some people might, but patience, I think, is another tool that we need in our toolkit if working with our auras and trying to see the aura. Because I think some people might do this and just be like, well, there's nothing, but it's repetition and practice. And I do remember the first time doing it, not seeing anything. And by like the 6th, 7th or 8th time, having a clearer sense of what I was seeing.
Totally. Yeah, there's a couple of other techniques that I would suggest. One is use getting coloured paper as well, and you can either get a printout or you can draw somebody's kind of shoulders, the outline of the shoulders and the head, and then just intuitively pick up the pencils and start drawing in what you're sensing. That's particularly good if you're more of a sensing person rather than a visual person. That's a great technique.
And using trees. Trees are good, aren't they?
Yeah.
Much easier to read the aura of a tree than a human, I think.
Definitely.
So that would be a good place to start. I remember doing that as well on one of our courses.
Just a
being in
caveat
nature.
to that is I would make sure that you ask the permission of the tree. Don't just kind of start going up to it and fiddling around with its energy. It might not be too happy with it. But yeah, absolutely doing that technique. You typically rub the hands together just to activate the smaller chakras in the hands. And then starting a good distance back and having your palms facing forward, away from your body towards the tree. And just very, very slowly, and you've got your hands usually about chest height, facing the tree. And the more attuned and the more practiced you become, the more sensitive your hands will become. Again, really good if you're much better at feeling things rather than visualizing things. You start a good maybe, let's say, 3 meters back from the tree. Depends slightly on the size of the tree. The bigger the tree, the easier it is to sense the aura, unsurprisingly. And then just taking a few kind of steps and seeing where you're looking for that energetic shift. So sometimes that can be the feeling
Resistance.
of a little bit of resistance, a certain barrier. Sometimes that can be a tingling in the hands.
I suppose even that simplest, when you're talking about rubbing the hands together, the most simplest form of I suppose that's more to do with energy, but similar thing where you rub your hands together and then start to feel that kind of energy, that space between your hands.
Yes, that's a really great precursor.
Yeah.
Because again, you're tuning into that energy between, and that is you feeling into your own chi, your own prana. So that's a really great precursor. Starting point. And then starting to kind of slowly approach the tree and see where you can notice, and maybe there's a tingling, maybe there's a coolness, maybe your hands get hot. Again, that is a sign of energy moving around. And then, just seeing where the edge of that aura is. And the more you practice that, the more in tune you'll become and the easier that will become. So that's one way. As I said, aura diagnostics from psychics.
Yeah.
If you really want to know.
Oh, and you can get photographs done as well now, can't you?
You can. So She Lost Control in Hackney does them. I've been there. Mine was mainly silver and pink, I think, my auric field. Yeah, and there'll be certain interpretations about each of the colours. So as far as I can remember, it's kind of... There are the kind of obvious ones. A lot of people relate them directly with the chakras, and there is a direct correlation, of course. So, for instance, if somebody's got a lot of red in their aura, they might be quite rational, quite practical, quite grounded, quite resourceful, good with the material world. So, too, might they be quite impassioned, a good leader, courageous. We can think of Mars energy. But again, I would really allow your own connection with each of those colours to dictate the meaning for you. There is nothing to say that a purple aura always means this, a blue aura always means this. It's entirely how, the more you work with it, the more you will develop your own dictionary or your own reference book for each of those colours. But what I would say is, if you're going to explore this, look at colour, texture and shape. Those three in tandem together will give you a good indication of kind of what may be out of alignment or what's working really well.
Is this, when we talk about grounding and then protection, quote unquote, is protection linked with the auric field as well?
Great question. Yes, absolutely, 100%. That's effectively what we're doing. We are strengthening, we are making that membrane of the aura. I'm kind of
tightening it up slightly, or
it's not so. again, this is why I'm slightly reluctant to use this shield analogy, but we're becoming more aware and more mindful of what we are and aren't letting through. Is basically it. Again, there's a lot of talk about entities. Oh, is it to stop entities coming through? Is it because things are trying to go out and get us and all of that stuff? It's absolute nonsense. It's just going, what's mine is mine and what's others is others. So being able to, a lot of the time we get lots of phone calls from people that are empaths and they experience empathetic overwhelm. So they're absorbing the emotions of other people, or they are very susceptible and sensitive to their environment.
Yeah.
And as intuitives, that is going to be a natural part. And I imagine everybody that's listening to this podcast is going to fall into that category, because otherwise you wouldn't really be listening to our podcast. So working with the aura in that way is by far grounding and protection. If that's all that people came away with across the board, I would be happy.
Yeah.
I think that it's the building blocks of all intuitive work, but it will also manage, 80% of your energetic disharmony, basically.
Yeah.
So working with the aura in that way is by far the greatest. The easiest way for that, for me personally, is coating the outside of your aura in particular colors. Again, that can be done in meditation, that can be done visualization. One way that you can do that is imagining sometimes I imagine paint kind of being dripped all on the outside of my aura, or sometimes I see it as rolls of wallpaper that are going on the outside, or I just see it as a light that's kind of swirling itself around the outside of the aura. Particular great colours is dark indigo, like the darkest blue you can imagine, is really great when you want to switch off, when you want to go completely under the radar, when you just want to kind of, again, zone in. It's always the colour that I use once my taxi light goes off of, right, I'm done for the day, I'm no longer working, I don't want spirit to be interfering in my life anymore, I just want to be left alone. So I use that very, very dark blue. Purple is great, a really nice protective colour. Gold, a lot of people use. So you might have heard that golden bubble, putting yourself in a golden bubble.
Or the lavender mist. Coming in, I use that.
It's great. Lavender's a lovely one. The only colours to generally avoid is bright white, which might surprise people. Bright white is great as a cleansing kind of, right, let's clear away stagnant, stale, spent energy. That's your kind of, your sweeper, so to speak. But on the outside of your aura, you're effectively doing the opposite of the of that dark blue. You're basically going to everything out there. You're lighting yourself up like a Christmas tree in the dark.
Yeah.
You're going, here I am, everything, come and find me. And that's a bit like leaving your door wide open.
Like a moth to a flame.
Like a moth to a flame. And then you can't be surprised of what's coming in. So I'd avoid red as well. So white, bright red as well. Red's quite an emotive colour. It can be a bit like a red flag to a bull. Mm-hmm. So we can kind of maybe incite certain emotional reactions that aren't necessarily welcome. And then thirdly, there's mixed opinions about this, but it's black. Some people say black's a really grounding colour, really protective colour, so fine. Personally, for me, I find it a bit oppressive. So that's why I go with this really dark blue. That's the alternative. But if you find that black works for you, then stick with it. The only other thing that I tend to do, and this is something I've developed for myself over time, and again, might not work for everybody, is shiny, like a shiny reflective mirror surface.
Metallic almost.
Metallic, yeah, exactly. Sometimes you see the chrome paint.
Yeah.
That's how I envision it. And I use that as a reflector. But again, that's pretty much going to send everything away. So that, again, I tend to use that more in times where I really want to be left alone. I would kind of coat it in that kind of chrome. Yeah, it's more like chrome colour. But they tend to be just the main ways. Again, one really, really good way, and this is the ironic thing, and people often think I'm making this up, when they come to me for sittings and I start tuning into their aura and it's bright pink and they've got a bright pink top on. And I always preface it with, I'm not saying this because you've got a bright pink top on, but it's incredible how many people dye their hair the same colour as their aura. So if people have got bright blue hair or bright pink hair or bright green hair, it's usually because that's what's going on with them energetically, and they're matching what's going on with the energetics. So it's always interesting to look at, why am I dyeing my hair this particular colour? And this is a great thing that we can tap into. So if we feel that we need more dynamicism in our life, wear more red. If we feel like we need more confidence in our life, wear more yellow. If we feel that we need to kind of work with the mind and communicate our truth, wear more blue, whatever it might be. So again, that will infuse the power, the energetics of your aura with that particular vibration. So we can start kind of honing it and shaping it and working with it.
Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? Because I've given advice to people before about the colours that they wear.
Yes.
Because it can have an impact, I think, on them and on how other people interact with them 100%. As well. And I think you're right. It's not just, just the colour itself, but I think that impact on the aura as well. It's really interesting. So just before we wrap up, a fun little thing. What do you know what my favourite colour is?
Yes.
Oh, because I'm trying to think what yours was, and I wasn't sure, and I have an inkling. But what's my favourite colour then?
Purple.
Ah, yes. And is yours blue?
Yes, but a very particular type of blue.
Yeah, well, it's funny because as you started intuitively, when you started talking about that dark blue, I got this sense that's that kind of, it's this protectiveness. So that the blue is linked with this sense of protecting slightly.
Yeah, I use that colour a lot. Yeah, and I'm quite private in those respects. My favourite colour is actually electric blue, that phosphorescent blue. You see that phosphorescent blue that creatures can make.
Yeah.
That colour. That's my absolute favourite colour. And weirdly, that's the psychic disinfectant. That's basically zaps anything away, that kind of blue. It's like zip, zip, zip. But yes, I think for you, your crown is bright white, lots and lots of bright white, like columns straight out of the top of your head, which is unsurprising given that you've been reading and we've been doing this podcast, so you're going to be quite open. And then there's quite a lot of green as well, kind of dark green around your shoulders, kind of pouring down here, as kind of supporting around there. Again, it's like almost moss green. There's kind of lighter green on the outside and then kind of moss green on kind of closer to, and there's something here about that being in reflection in relation to, I don't know, it sounds a bit generic, but a lot of growth and part spiritual growth and kind of, just, again, it's almost like, I know this sounds a bit strange, but they're showing an image of your shoulders, like this part of your shoulders getting really muscly. Maybe that's a literal thing, let's hope, but I feel that that's more about you being able to support and burden the role of responsibility more and more and more as you move
And it's
forward.
funny because although purple is my favourite colour, my second favourite colour is green. Like I think the essence of green and that feeling of things that are natural, of nature, of the heart, that kind of feeling resonates really strongly with me. So if I was to choose, it would be purple and green. So makes sense that that's in my aura.
Good.
Good.
Okay, so we're just going to see with the cards what Spirit has to say about the aura. So it'd be quite interesting. Oh, this is a good message. So we have the Eight of Wands. The Eight of Wands it's an interesting card because it's where the Wands, which is all about kind of action and doing and creativity and moving forward, motivation, it's where it is exalted, so it's where it's happiest within the eights, usually indicative of lots of things happening simultaneously. It's a bit like the spinning of plates card. There is a message here from Spirit just around how unaware a lot of us, how basically about speed and how things are getting quicker and quicker and quicker. And we are now expected to respond to emails within a heartbeat. We're meant to make decisions in a heartbeat. We're meant to do everything off the cuff. We're doing everything by a whim. Our ability, and that's to be commended a lot of the time, but that our ability to actually sit back and reflect and actually muse and kind of look at what we think about things is diminishing more and more and more. And what they keep saying is that we're not necessarily running around like headless chickens, but we're not far off either. And it's quite unconscious at times, and we are charging through life at the rate of knots. And this is a reminder, because ultimately what we've been talking about in terms of kind of auric health is cultivated through stillness, cultivated by coming back to center, centering oneself, finding actually where is the middle line. It's interesting, sometimes I use this technique where I imagine a line or a thread being suspended by the ceiling and coming towards me and landing dead center. And they are affirming and saying that this is what is required, this is what is needed, is to carve out that time, carve out that moment throughout every day, just to come back to oneself. And they're also saying that the more you're able to do this, the more that you will take yourself out of the slipstream of further, of just doing, and the more you'll be able to recognize those that are in that further of just rushing around kind of quite unconsciously.
Great. Wow.
Good.
Thanks.
Thanks, Spirit. And thanks,
and
Jamie.
That's a wrap.
And that's a wrap. Lots of love.
Lots
Bye
of
now.
love. Bye. And that's the end of this week's episode. We'd love to hear what you think or suggestions of what we could cover in future. Either leave us a comment if the platform you're listening on allows it, or drop us an email, hello@wellnessfoundry.co.uk. Alternatively, DM us on Instagram. Be sure to hit subscribe or follow to stay up to date with the latest releases. But until next time, love and blessings.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Spirit Level, brought to you by the Wellness Foundry, the home of spiritual wellness. For more information and bookings, visit the website wellnessfoundry.co.uk or find us on Instagram @wellnessfoundry. Don't forget, as a thank you for listening, receive 5% off your first booking by using code PODCAST5 at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.